I'm Mel Stewart, and this is SwimSwam Podcast. Joining me today, we have a very special guest, Nimrod Shapira. If that name sounds familiar, it should. He's an NCAA champion via the University of Arizona. He's a two-time Olympian. I heard about Nimrod long before. I knew about your swimming prowess, but it was always as a swim entrepreneur, as from just people who were in the business of swimming. Like, you got to talk to this guy, you got to get to know this guy. And that's really why I wanted you to come on the podcast. I wanted people to get a sense of who you are and your enthusiasm and your expertise in the sport at a time when I think we really need it. But I also want people to understand how deep your roots are in the sport. You have extraordinarily deep roots. To just talk about your coaches.
This episode of the SwimSwam Podcast is sponsored by Commit Swimming, SwimSwam's exclusive team management software partner. Since 2015, Commit has been providing coaches with swimming's leading workout management software. And now, Commit has team management software too. Commit wants to help you make the switch from Team Unify to a simpler, more powerful solution. Their onboarding and customer service team will walk you through every step of the way. Check them out at commitswimming.com to book your demo today. That's COMMIT swimming.com.
You were coached by Sergio Lopez, Frank Bush, Rick DeMont. Can you give me some insight into that experience and these luminary coaches?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you first remember my name very well, because how many people in your life you meet that their name is Nimrod, right? So that's always a very good introduction when I introduce myself and I explain them the meaning of my name. When I first got to the US in 2006, and I went to the ball school in Jacksonville, I went to the cafeteria, and a very nice lady greeted me, and I was carrying my food in my plate, and she was asking, "What's your name, darling?" And I said, "Nimrod." And she looked at my friend, "He's kidding, right?" So that was my first kind of understanding. Okay, maybe I need to switch my name or have a nickname. And so from that day, everyone called me Nim. It was easier, and me not feeling bad about my name, but today I use it to my advantage, right? I'm Nimrod Shapira, and that makes people remember my name. When I first got to the US, I swam at the ball school. I had a few different coaches, but then Sergio Lopez was my coach my senior year and really impacted my swim career, and not just in the pool, also outside of the pool. He really shaped me to think as an Olympian. That's when I had the dream about being an Olympian. And the first day that he met me, he told me, "Nim, and Sergio really has a way to talk to you. He's almost like a swimmer whisperer." And he said, "Nim, I'm gonna make you think like an Olympian." And that really clicked with me. And we had an incredible year. And I went from 150.8 long course meter to 147.7 and making the semifinals at the Olympics with Sergio. So there is a lot of credit to him and how he did that with me. And from after the Olympic Games in '08, I went and swam for the University of Arizona, and I was recruited by legendary Frank Bush. And then in Arizona, I swam with Frank and I swam with Rick DeMont. Frank was great, but I lost him after my second year. I think he went to USA Swimming. And Rick DeMont really shaped who I am. I also trained with Whitney Height. So between Whitney Height, killer sets, and kind of grinding me to the ground, and Rick DeMont, the artist, philosopher, and that he's looking at swimming. Rick looks at swimming in a completely different way. He looks at it as an art. He's a painter, if people don't know that. And I really clicked with that. And I have a few paintings of Rick even in my office. So between that, having Sergio in high school, and then having Frank recruiting me, and then having Whitney Height and Rick DeMont, I had some great people that shaped me inside and outside of the pool.
And you were a lights out NCAA swimmer for anybody out there listening in the United States. 40, Nimrod would say 42, 300 free, 133.5, 200-yard free, 143.7, 200 butterfly, 144. I forgot what you're 144.85 in the IM, 200 IM. So, if you consider the timeline back in that era, extraordinarily fast. I will say this: the I love Sergio. My first Olympics was 1988, and Sergio, I got fifth, and my roommate at the Olympics got fourth, and Sergio won the bronze in the 200 breast. And
Mhm.
that was back when Sergio was lean and tall and good looking and had this massive black hair. And now
Yeah.
everybody knows him as this bald guy with a huge white beard. But I just want everyone to know there was one time when he was a Hollywood star, leading man, winning Olympic medals, and
Yeah,
he knows he is the swimmer whisperer. Your roots are far deeper than this. I mean, your wife it's Christina, right?
correct. Yes.
Co-founder in your
Yeah.
company, world
Yeah.
championship swimmer. So you're 100% swimming.
Yes, I think I was like that my entire life. I was always 110% into things that I believe and I love. And Christina is someone obviously very special to me. She's my wife, and we are expecting our first baby, a girl, in 2 months. But Christina and I met when she was 14, I was 16, and back in Israel on the national swim team. And from day one that I met her, I always had a very soft spot for her. And I tell her that all the time. She doesn't believe me, but sh since that day, I was in love with her, right? At that age, you don't know that you're in love with someone, but she became my best friend. And we used to go and skip school or even practice sometimes and go to McDonald's and have, a 99-cent ice cream as teenagers. And she became very close to me. And even my coaches knew if Nim has a bad practice or a bad week, my coach used to call Christina and say, "Hey, come train with us for a few days." So that was when I was 15 years old. And then our path, obviously, she went to college, I went to college, and we dated people. But then after college, our path crossed again. And from the first time I saw her and talked with her on the phone, I knew I'm going to marry her. And so that was for me closing a circle. And I knew that I'm getting together with my best friend. And until today, we're still the 15-year-old best friends. It doesn't feel like I'm married. So that's a good sign for me.
We're going to talk swim business, and I want to it's just listening to you. Someone told me a long time ago, a mentor said, your success in business, if I had to list the top five things, marrying, being a partner and being in a marriage with the right person is among those top five and might be number one. And
Yeah.
yeah, I would have to agree. It sounds like that's a part of the mix of your success.
Yes, 100%. I own my previous business, my previous swim school before obviously Christina and I were together. And the moment she joined my life again and she joined my team, I mean, she elevated everything I did. So I had that support system at home, and we were working together as well. That I had somebody that understood what I'm doing, understood the sacrifice, right? Because she was a world championship swimmer. She, by the way, she missed the Olympic Games by 8/100ths of a second. So she knows also what's a failure of missing, the biggest stage of your life. So having somebody with that competitive mindset that also is really passionate about what you do, was very easy for me to come home and discuss problems and discuss failures and find solutions together. So that supportive system is what made our business just explode and grow, and eventually being able to exit and sell to private equity. I give her a lot of credit to my first business and this business now we're doing together, because now it's my turn to prove to her, hey, we're going to actually be co-founders. I don't want to take all the credit. I want us as, power couple, husband, wife, do just to build something bigger and better than what we had before. And I want to show her that she can make the Olympics, right? In business, I see, and you and I spoke about it, I see business as a sport. And I relate everything that I do in my business, I relate it to my swim career and the challenges. It's pretty much the same kind of path that you go through, right? You have more challenges and more failures and more mistakes than the success moments. So you have to go through this entire path in order to get to the success on the top of the mountain. And I want to show Christina that together we're going to get her to the Olympics. We're going to build a very large business, very successful, and we're going to impact a lot of employees and staff members, and we're going to impact a lot of swimmers and future swimmers. And so I want to show her that together we can actually win an Olympic gold medal.
That's a good stepping off point because I want to get into this topic. We ran an editorial from you, which was pretty cool, and right now it's clicking in at about 280,000 views. So 280,000 people have read this. How come many swimmers don't do this is the title. How come many swimmers don't do this? The untapped business hiding in swimming. So let me zoom out. Let's start with this, it's the big picture in this conversation. You talk about swimming isn't a failed business model. It's a misunderstood one. Can you unpack that idea for us?
I'll start from the end of the title of this article and the question that you asked, how come many more swimmers don't do this? I've been obviously involved for the past 12 years in the swim lesson community, the swim school, swim academy lessons community. And every time there is a national conference that goes in the US every year, and there is many events all over the world that go every year, and I attend a lot of them. And it's a great learning opportunity. It's good for networking, but the biggest thing that is mind-blowing to me every time I go is that me as Nimrod Shapira, a two-time Olympian, I'm not an Olympic medalist. I'm not some famous swimmer. Yes, I was fast and I appreciate the credit, but I'm nowhere next to some of the famous swimmers and the achievements that they've had. But then I walk in those conferences and there's 1,000 people there, and I'm the only Olympian there. I'm the only maybe swimmer there. And I'm very noticeable, right? I'm a large dude walking into a conference room with 800 to 1,000, mostly female owners of swim schools. And it's very easy for me to introduce myself, and everyone will remember me because of my unique name. But most importantly, because there is an Olympian in the room, there is a swimmer in the room. And for me, that's always been mind-boggling. How come there are not more people like me in this room? How come more people that have been through swimming and have the skills, have the experience, have the passion to the sport are not heavily engraved into the swim school, swim academy community in the US or in the world? And I don't want to say it was easy, but I do think that it was easier for me as an NCAA champion, Olympic swimmer, to use that platform and to open my own swim lesson community or my own swim school and build on that a successful business, right? For somebody that has no experience or is a lifeguard or is a teacher, in my opinion, it's going to be harder for them to have credibility, right? To be able to understand the sport of swimming. But if you graduate college and you swim high school and you swim college, you have at least 10 years of experience in the sport, and you're probably somewhat passionate about the sport. So how come you just stop that and you're not elevating that and using that as a platform? That was just always a very big question for me. And to be honest, I never voiced it because, as I walked into my first conference, so I walked into all those conference rooms, for me, this is my advantage, right? This is all, it's competition, right? Why will I go out there and start having 1,000 more swimmers in here? And I saw it as my competitive advantage. So I used it and I leveraged my swim knowledge and my swim experience and my credibility as an Olympian. But I really now 10, 12 years into it, I'm still seeing that I'm the only one. And you know what? You and I talked about it, and you kind of questioned that. And you said, no, Nim, but I heard there are few people getting into it. Yes, there are maybe five other people now that are either Olympians or Olympic medalists that are getting into this industry. But I'm not talking about, this is not an impact. I'm talking about, I want to see 500 swimmers, NCAA champions, Olympians, world championship team members, and their families joining this industry, because obviously it's a very successful industry, that there is a need for it. And I just don't see the movement of swimmers getting into it.
There's a big movement today where a lot of people are talking about the wealth transfer that's happening, particularly in the United States. And but baby boomers are aging out. Baby boomers are retiring, and this massive generation of people, and they're squatting on huge amounts of money. So they're retiring, and they're either trying to sell their business, or they can't sell their business, or they're offloading it to someone who is Alpha or Gen Z or that's younger. And so there's a wealth transfer happening there. So a lot of young people are doing these businesses that are not necessarily high-tech businesses. They're taking real bricks and mortar, retail, service-oriented businesses, and they're growing big wealth. And I think that's a thing that's happening right now. I would like to see it in swimming. I would like to see it in this space. And I think what's interesting and would be helpful for people to learn is that you made this transition. You went from being an NCAA champion. And let's hold that thought for 1 second. You mentioned, I wasn't a medalist, but I was an Olympian. All right. I was an NCAA champion, but we're talking about swimmers who you swim in college. Let's just say you're D3 swimmer in college. You're really 99 percentile of everybody on earth. Like, your knowledge of the sport, you have the same amount of years. You might not have the same talent, but it's like you got there. You're within 1 degree of the best of the best. So the swath of people who have just the knowledge base of our sport is huge from the competitive ranks. So all this huge swath, and that does include way more than 500 people. And you have this call, you're like, I want 500 people in this industry. The important point is for them to know your beginning, your genesis. You started, my understanding, $480 in your pocket.
Correct.
How did you begin with $480 in your pocket and, no safety net? And you had just one tiny success, like a yes moment where you went, okay, this is going to be it. I can do this.
Yeah. Some people raise an eyebrow when I say that, right? Some people don't believe that story. And to be honest, I don't care too much, right? Because when I graduated college, I had nothing. Being an Olympian doesn't mean that you make a big paycheck, right? And being an NCAA champion back then, you didn't make money from it. So when I graduated University of Arizona, I had $482 in my bank account. It's even framed in my office. I had no visa because I was on a student visa, right? So I had no visa, and I applied for OPT, and I didn't have a safety net, right? My parents got divorced, and my whole family were back home in Israel, and I wanted to explore the American dream. I always, even in college, I ran small businesses, and everyone in school knew that, Nim is doing something, right? He's not only going to school and only swimming, but I really wanted to explore the American dream, right? As an immigrant, you're raised and seen the TV shows and all that the American dream has to offer. And now here I am, 2013, I'm graduating college. Yes, I have the credential of NCAA champion and Olympian. And I'm like, how can I leverage that and explore the American dream? I dated a girl at the time, and after college, I stayed with her. I moved to Michigan, and it all started for me renting one swim lane and doing one clinic. I wanted to see if there is a business behind swimming, and I used the credential of being an Olympian, and I ran a swim clinic in Detroit, Michigan, and we had, I think it was over 70 swimmers showing up. And each one of them paid $75 for 2 or 3 hour clinic. And that's when I started seeing the money. I'm like, holy crap, sorry for my English, but like there is such a big need for, my information and my expertise to give, to the swim community. So that's where it really started. After that, I said, okay, I obviously have credibility and knowledge in swimming. Let's explore everything swimming has to offer. What are all the different verticals that this sport of swimming has as a business? And I look, do I want to be a coach? And this was very, to realize who you are and what you want to do. So I looked, do I want to be a coach? Do I want to be a college coach? And I went and saw a few coaches and looked at them coach, and I even asked them how much money they make, right? I'm an immigrant. I ask every single question, no shame. And I realized I don't want to be a coach for my own, personal reasons. And then after that, I went in and looked into merchandise, and I looked into Speedo, Arena, all the stuff that they are doing. And I said, oh, this is too big of an investment. I'm not going to do that. And then in one of the conversations I had with Rick DeMond in Arizona, he told me my wife is running a swim school, and he was telling me how it's ramping up and everything that they're doing. And I asked him, hey, can I meet your wife? And obviously, Rick is an incredible person, and he introduced me to his wife, and I met her at the swim school, and the Mont Swim School in Tucson. And I remember walking through the corridor of her swim school and seeing the parents in the viewing area, and then seeing the kids in the pool. And she had 5 or 6 or 7 instructors in the water. And as I'm walking through the facility, I'm having this aha moment. It's almost like I'm falling in love, right? It's almost like the first time I saw a beautiful woman, or the first time I saw Christina back in my life. And I'm going through this experience. And then I looked at Carrie and I said, Carrie, you're telling me how successful it is. And I see how awesome of an operation you're running. Why are you not opening 5 of them? Like right away. I'm like, why are you not opening 5 of them? And she told me, listen, I was a teacher. I'm doing this. I invested my entire life saving into this. We risked everything to build this business, and we're happy now. We're comfortable. We're doing well. And I listened to that, and I love that. Carrie is such an incredible woman, and she became my mentor for a few years. But as soon as she said that, in my head, right, in Hebrew we have a saying, like, you have the Israeli chutzpah, right? You can say and do, and you'll go through the wall with your ideas. But in my head, as I was driving home, I'm like, I'm gonna build 10 of this. Like, I'm not going to do one. I'm going to build 10 of this. So on the way to my small apartment in Tucson, that's where all the idea of getting in this industry started. And for me, this is a perfect closing circle, because I don't know if many people know this, but when I was 7 years old, I actually drowned. I was saved in a birthday party. Then I got into swim lessons. Then I got into swimming later on in my life and made it all the way to the Olympic Games. And then I looked at, the operation that the Demont Swim School had, and I said, this is closing a circle for me. I can build a business, use my passion, use the experience of the last 12 or 13 years of my swim experience, and I can use that as a platform to build a very successful business and also make a very good impact on the world. I'm a huge believer that you can change the world through business. I think that you can, take care of your employees, your staff, your team, the vendors you work with, and you can provide a very good service that people will be happy to pay for. So I think business, if you do it in the right way, you're able to impact the world. And from that point, 2013 until 2024, we impacted many tens of thousands of families, and I was super happy to wake up every day to that purpose and that mission of running a business.
Of all the people that we're talking, we were talking about, hey, 500 people out there, but this bigger, because we really categorized who would be perfect for this. I think that many of them have heard about this. Hey, you should start a swim school at least once, and it might have, maybe they were young and it just went over their head. But you hear about it again and again and again. You get into your 20s, maybe you started your career, maybe you're in the corporate world and you're climbing the corporate ladder from the bottom rung, and you want to be entrepreneurial, and you hear the idea again, or you see it through a friend of a friend. So I think this this allotment of people we're talking about have heard about this several times, and they haven't taken that step. There's fear, there's concern, there's the unknown. Why do you think more swimmers haven't? What is the fear? What is it? What's keeping this army of people from moving into this industry?
Listen, first of all, I think it's not, I think, I know this business is a hard business to get into. The barrier to the market is high. If you right away shoot to the moon and you want to build your location, right? You're talking about $2 to $3.5 million if you buy your own real estate, or you're talking between 600,000 or $1.5 million if you even lease your location, right? Because it's building a swimming pool, it's building the shower, changing rooms, viewing area. It's not like a coffee shop, right? In a coffee shop, you can buy a barista or a coffee machine. You can have somebody train them on YouTube, and within 24 hours, I can probably paint the wall and open a coffee shop. Building a swim school can take a year and a half. It can take a huge investment. So I think people see that right away and they're like, oh, I don't have that, or I don't want to risk that much. But I started from the bottom. I really started from renting one lane line and scaling that. Yes, now I own seven, large properties that are, swim schools, and now the swim academy that we're building in Orlando. But I didn't start from this point. I started from renting one lane line and checking if I even want to be in this industry, right? That was my prototype. More than that, I think that swimming has been a sport that for many years we've all, I don't want to say brainwashed, but that's the reality of swimming. You're a swimmer in high school. The US system has an incredible system of, then you swim in college, and once you're done with college, you're gone. Like the day after NCAA championship on your senior year, people don't show up to the pool anymore. Like most people are like, I'm burned from this sport, which that's one issue. But the second issue is they're told, if you're passionate about swimming, your next stage after senior year is you becoming a coach. That's all I've been told. That's why being a coach was the first thing that I actually looked if I want to do, right? It's the first vertical of business behind swimming that I wanted to see if I can do. But that's all we are told. We are not told that, hey, guys, there are incredible jobs in e-commerce, right? Or Speedo, TYR, Arena. Or, this is not a commercial to any of these companies, but I'm sure there are incredible job opportunities with those companies. Or, hey, guys, there is the swim school or the swim academy vertical, or there is the swim club. I mean, we have some clubs in the US that are privately held, right? Some very famous one in Texas that are doing pretty well. So like nobody is told, hey, you have those different opportunities, but everyone are told, hey, if you're passionate about swimming and you're a senior, you can be a really good coach because you can use your passion and you can shape, the next generation of swimmers. And, the passion driven agenda of this for me is awful because coaches are getting burned, right? Because they're working insane hours. And that's one of the reasons I did not want to do it. They don't have weekends. It's very tough on their family. And you see coaches are getting burned because all they're being told, and actually they're telling themselves as well, I'm so passionate about swimming. Every year I'm shaping these 20, 50, 100 swimmers, and I'm so happy from, that passion-driven career. But at the end of the day, passion doesn't take you to the bank, in my opinion, right? I was an immigrant with no visa and $482 in my bank account. I had to figure out how I don't have only a passionate career, but I have something that can take me to the bank. I have something that can put food on my table, something that, can build a career for me and that I can scale that. And I think that's the issue. I think that it's an almost unspoken of. It's your passion, you're a swimmer, you're passionate, you become a coach. And I'm like, no, this is the wrong. Like you have to really have a business model behind it. And you have to make sure that you can support your family, you can have a life, and yes, you can be passionate on the way.
I think people really are going to want to know, how did you go from one lane, renting one lane, to some incremental steps? Can you give us insight into some incremental steps and how you got to your first brick and mortar?
First of all, I think even today, being that immigrant, right, having only $482, no visa, I naturally became a survivor, right? I had to find a way. How do you survive? How do you stay in the US legally, right? Number one. How do you make sure you're profitable as soon as possible? Number two. So like that build, and that's what I call, that's my business DNA. And again, I connect the business to sport. I see it as a sport, right? So the moment that you have that DNA and you look at the business as a sport, you just understand it's competition, right? And it's a competition every day. The sad thing almost in swimming is that we have the peak every 4 years, right? We train 4 years for the Olympics. In the sport of business, you train at the Olympics every single day. Like you compete at the Olympics every single day. And you can fail on day two, but you can be very successful on day four. So that's, I think, the advantage of the sport of business compared to swimming. And how I scaled it is I was just in my mindset. Every day I showed up to the office. Every day I showed up to this one lane that I had. It was another Olympic Games. And that competitive mindset, I think within 2 months, we took over that entire pool. And then within another maybe 6 or 8 months, less than a year, we opened two more pools. And then within 2.5 years, we actually had 7 pools that we fully controlled in the state of Michigan. We rented all of them, but we were the operators, the open swim, the swim lessons, the synchronized swimming, the summer camps. We operated them exclusively. We even ran the state championships in Michigan, I think 4 or 5 times, right? And so we really became the swim business of Michigan. And honestly, some people I don't think liked it because I don't want to say I commercialized swimming, but I made it into a business. I made sure that my coaches are paid. I made sure that we pay, market rents to our facilities. And I looked at it as how do we grow, right? And some people, if they coach at the same pool for 30 years or still stuck in that one lane line, and then they see that every year we open in another facility. I mean, the nature of competitiveness is that you're going to beat someone. But for me, that was the edge, is how do I show up every day and I look at it as I have another chance to compete at the Olympic Games, which means who do I need to beat next? What do I need to go to do next?
There's something that I think everybody knows. They don't talk about it, but swimming pools that are owned by the state, local governments, universities, whoever's controlling them, whoever's managing the budget. They're trying to program those pools because they're losing money. It's an enormous cost. It's an enormous drain on taxpayers. It's an enormous drain for, homeowners associations. So they're looking for ways because, you drive by a pool, you see any pool, oftentimes it's empty. So they're
Yeah.
looking for ways to hourly program it, and they'll allot time to program that pool. They will rent you the space. And it sounds like that was really your fast way to move. And I've heard that from a lot of people. A lot of people, some peers, have moved quickly by going, yeah, I started renting lane space. You can rent lane space, and it's not that bad. You're turning a profit pretty fast.
Yeah, I'll tell you that that's exactly how we started. The first location that I rented only one lane in the beginning was a private club, and the time when I negotiated with them renting land from them. I told them, hey, show me your financials. I want to see what this pool is making you guys. And they looked at me weird. They're like, we're a private club. We're actually losing $22,000 a year. Like they showed me a bottom line that is red, $22,000. And I told them, what if I promise you and we have a contract in paper that you are going to make a commission for me, or I'll pay you rent and you'll be positive $22,000, right? So that means $44,000. I remember like my negotiation, and of course they were like, absolutely, take it. They signed it on the spot. Within 2 years, they made about $200,000 a year from my program, rent and commission that they were making over there. So that's a huge jump, obviously, and that's such a, I think that's the story to tell, because that's how I started. The problem, and there is a problem here, right? And Nim, why are you not still doing it in all those pools that have, empty water space or availability? The problem is, once you start growing and you start getting really good at what you do, and you start getting hundreds of people through a facility, then you realize that it's not your facility, right? And somebody can take it underneath you, and somebody can come and offer, people are greedy. Humankind, we're greedy creatures. Somebody can offer $1 more than you and they will take the facility. And more than that, I felt like I cannot build my brand, right? I could never put my sign on the door, or I could never, do marketing in my facilities, because all I got is you renting the pool and stay in that corner, make us money, but like you cannot advertise yourself or you cannot build your brand here. And that was a huge pain point for me, because I was self-employed, right? And I'm building my own business, and it's in the title. You want self-control. You want to be able to, if I want the water temperature to be 91, it has to be 91. It cannot be 89. If I want to put the sign on the door, if I want to have two computers here in the front desk, all of this system, you have to have full control in order to take the next step, right? If I wanted to stay at my stage, and I could probably have done it, I will stay, but then you also have to answer to your landlord and the facility you rent in every month. People want to feel important, sorry to say that, but then you have to have board meetings with them and meet with them and explain to them why they have to keep your contract. So I kind of got to the stage, Nim, if you want to really go big, you got to start building your own locations. You got to own your locations.
You program these pools. You showed ROI for the pools that were losing money, and you did that for a period of time. And then you're like, okay, I've got to control my brand. I got to control every aspect of my business, but you're throwing off cash and profit. And at a certain point, you went to bricks and mortar. That's a big step. That's a huge step. That's a scary step. Talk me through that step. What's your, that's what everybody wants. It's the holy grail, because here's the secret to that sauce. If you do it correctly, you're going to own a commercial property. And once you own a commercial property, you're into really, truly building wealth for you or your family.
Yeah. So actually, there is a cool and unique story. I don't think you and I ever discussed it, but there is a real reason and how I got there to build my own locations. My dad was a huge supporter of mine in my swim career. He always sacrificed everything for me in order for me to achieve my next stage with swimming, right? I moved to England and then the US, and he was always there. So even when I ran my business, he will come. I was a 22-year-old person and no experience, and he will come to the US and help me think like a business owner. He owned his own businesses. And I remember the movie The Founder came out, right? It's the McDonald's movie came out. And at that time, I don't remember when, it was probably around 2015-ish, 2016, something like that. And I remember my dad was in the US and we were waiting for it, right? And now connecting, I always went to McDonald's with Christina, right? So McDonald's was a very soft spot for me as well. But everyone knew that McDonald's really discovered the American dream, right? That is the American dream. And my dad was in the US And then I started having issues with few of my rented facilities, right? Like I said, we had hundreds of people going through, the locations, human creatures, we're greedy creatures. And so I started having meetings with people that wanted more money, period. They wanted more money, they wanted more control, they wanted access to my books. And I even had one of my locations saying, "Hey, you're 23-year-old, you're making too much money for your time, for your age, and you're making more money than my vice president." And I looked at him and said, "It's not your fucking business how much money I make. Like I'm doing really well in your facility." So that started getting toxic for me, understanding that I don't control my own business, right? If I don't have the pools, I don't have a business. And then the founder came out. The founder came out. My dad and I went to this horrible cinema in Detroit and we watched it. But the same as when I walked into Carrie Demont Swim School in Tucson, the entire movie, I had this aha moment of like, I should not be only in the swim school or swim lessons industry. I should own the real estate and have swim lessons go through it. That's how you build wealth. And my dad literally, as we walked out and we drove like, I don't know, half an hour home, all we talked about, Nim, this is what you need to do. You need to own your properties. You don't need to have this greedy landlords. You need to control your business and you need to build wealth and your safety net through real estate. So that's how this came about. Okay. Now it came about and it's a nice idea and it's a nice movie, but how do you buy a commercial building or a piece of land and build a swim school? So that's where the journey started for about a year. How do I save every penny I have? And how do I find the perfect opportunity to build my first location? And then I think a year later, and I was saving, like I was literally trying to live very cheap and save as much as I can. Again, an immigrant started from nothing. And I had a good chunk of money in savings. And then I went over Christmas, I went to Jacksonville, Florida to visit my friends. And we're sitting in a brewery. And on the TV, it was in Mandarin, Florida, in Jacksonville. And on the TV, there was on the news that a 6-year-old drowned in Jacksonville that week. And then my friends looked at me and they said, "Hey, Nim, you're doing everything you're doing in Michigan. You actually hate it because it's cold and you come down to Florida all the time for sunshine. Why wouldn't you build a location here in Jacksonville, here in Florida?" And guess what? 2 weeks later, I drove through a commercial lot that had overgrown weeds. And I called an attorney. I said, "Hey, can I buy this, property?" And he did all the work, found out that it's a daycare that bankrupt. We bought that daycare for pennies on the dollar. One of the best investment and real estate investments I've ever made. And that's where the chase began of how do I convert it into a swim school, right? And it took about 8 months and a lot of learning, a lot of failing. I did a bunch of the renovations even myself. I almost died probably 8, 10 times. But that's how it started. It started from the founder movie. My dad with me in Michigan telling me, "Hey, you can do this," having that support, but finding the right opportunity, the right time, the right community to do it. And I'll add one thing. A lot of people will always tell you why not to do something, right? Your family, especially family and friends, it's almost like they care for you, but they too much care for you, and they will put doubts into your mind. When I found this property, a few days later, there was a big swim conference. And I went to the swim conference because I wasn't sure if I want to buy the property. And I went to the swim school conference and everyone, there was not one person there. And some of them were very close to me and good friends, and we're still good friends. But everyone told me, "Do not do it at that location. You don't have enough parking. This building is not a good fit. You don't have space to build the pools." They gave me 120 reasons why not to do a swim school in this location. There was not one person supporting me besides my dad at the time telling me, "You can do it." And I just went with my guts and I did that. And that location was one of the most incredible investments that I've ever made. It turned out extremely successful. I think that location now have about 1,500 five-star Google reviews, which you don't have one swim school in the country that has that. That was one of the locations that I sold when I sold my business to private equity. But that's a huge lesson by itself, right? Like, don't listen to your people around you. Like, listen to your inner self. Like, trust what you want to do. And yes, you're going to fail many, many, many times over. And I failed many times over, right? That location, I'm serious, I almost died probably 8 or 10 times at building that location. But at the end of the day, it's all learning. If you take it and you say, okay, every failure, I'm learning from it and I'm moving one step forward, and you learn from it, and that's pretty much the story of how I began to own my properties. And as soon as I saw that I can do it, right, we were full within 6 months, and then we had to build another pool outside in this location, and then that was full again within 6 months. And the same mentality of me going to the Olympics, right? Every single day I went to the office, I went to the Olympics, and I used that mentality. And within 1 year, we opened another location. And then within another 2 years, we opened another. So every year, pretty much, I open at least one or two locations.
We're in the moment right now, my wife and I, with our daughter, who's 25. And she owns, we're entrepreneurial. We own several businesses. And she's our kid. She grew up watching us. And she has a business that is where she's leasing space and she's moving from location to location. And she figured out, I want a commercial space. And I said, so we had the conversation of, all right, you have a successful business, you have a profit, it's a really nice profit, and now you want to make the leap to a commercial spot, which now would be two businesses, and you're going to build real wealth if you're successful. So she's in that tension period that you went through that you're telling me about. And I'm, as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, as her father, don't don't scare her. Don't try to protect her. Let her take some chances and swing for the fences.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's good timing.
Let me add something to you that, again, I'm kind of good in annoying people because I don't speak and say what some people want to hear sometimes. But I really talk my truth and my honest opinion, and there is no barrier from what I think to what I say. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But my point is, when I went through, watching the movie The Founder and start owning my commercial real estate, I owned a house and then I sold my house. I saw how, like, the American dream is not go mortgage a house, mortgage or lease a car. That's what, the system is trying to sell us, right? You need to own your house. You need to lease a very nice car. I literally sold my house, became sort of homeless. On a side note, I lived in my construction facility for 8 months while I was building it. And I'm not ashamed of doing that sacrifice. But my point is, a house is liability. So when I see people in their 20s risking everything they have, instead of paying rent, let's mortgage a house, but then they have a side business or they have something else. I'm like, your house will never produce you income, right? Or the return on it is very, very small if you ever lease a room or your entire house. But if you want to run a business or if you own a business already, owning the real estate of your business, that's not a liability. That's actually an investment because you can control your rent. And then also if you sell your business or you move on, that commercial real estate is very, very valuable, and the return on it is much higher than what you will rent a house. So for me, that was like, I always saw houses liability. Leasing, I've never leased a car in my life. I built a very large business in Michigan, right? 7 locations or 6 locations. and I was driving a Ford Focus, right? Like I just did not want to go into liabilities. And I saved everything every time at every stage. I saved everything in order to have my next investment that will secure my future. And for me, this was building my own locations.
Oh, and it's everybody I talk to, it's a mentor, always talks about this. They said your house is not, oh, you own your house. Because we're at an age where you own your house. We pay cash for your house. If you're
Mhm.
successful, that's what you do. It's
Mhm.
I think we've covered a lot of ground here. And what I want to really get to the point of saying is owning a swim school is, I hear you say it's a mission with a margin. And this is
Mhm.
what I want people, I want them to take, this thought away from the podcast. What do you mean by that?
I mean by that it's, if you compare to other businesses or other industries, right? Like the cigarette industry, right? There's probably a lot of margins there, the alcohol, all of these different industries. This industry, and this is such a hidden gem, in my opinion, and I've been thankfully successful in it, and I'm doing another round now. But this industry and this specific vertical of swim lessons, it's a mission-driven business. You're doing a lot of good. You're impacting a lot of people. It's an incredible business to work at as an owner, and it's incredible business to work for as an employee. Like I've never seen employees show up to a swim school and hate their life, or like you see people that complaining, right? But like this is people that come to work in a swim lesson industry. They love working with kids. They love teaching. It's such an incredible industry that you have passion, you have a very high level mission, right? Because in the US alone, you have 10 drownings a day. It's just insane that people don't understand that the leading cause of death for kids under 4 is drowning. So obviously your mission, you're saving lives every single day. So every single day that I went to my Olympic Games with this business, I'm saving lives. So that's my mission, which is, I think, one of the best gifts that we have in this industry. And then the margins on it are great margins. There, you can have a really good business model. I cannot promise to people that they will be profitable, right? You also see people that fail in any industry, including this industry. But there are very good margins in this business. You can make really good money. You can make really good career for yourself. You can make really good career for your employees and your team. And you can do that still having a really good mission and following your passion.
I like that. Mission is a margin. If you're listening now, take it home with you. Let's get into our lightning round. I want to ask you some quick questions just for fun. What's harder, building a swim school from scratch or qualifying for the Olympics?
The Olympics, easy. Yeah, it's qualifying for the Olympics.
Yeah, it's hard. One thing about running a business nobody warns you about.
That you shouldn't listen to anyone. Everyone tell you listen to everyone, and I'm saying the opposite. If you believe in what you do, follow it. Don't listen, don't stop.
Most underrated skills swimmers have that makes them secretly great entrepreneurs.
That swimmers put their head in the water, and when you swim you don't listen to anyone. So keep that way also in business. Put your head down and just swim.
And as we're winding down, is there a book? Is there a podcast? Is there something that you would recommend for athletes who are thinking about launching a business?
I think the founder, right? We talked about it. That changed my life. And the compound effect. It's a book that I give to a bunch of my employees, because the same as with swimming, every day, every practice, if you build it right and you're taking the right steps, even if you're taking the wrong steps, you're building a compound effect that makes you better over time.
You've been listening to the SwimSwam Podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take SwimSwam Podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.